So this tool here is one that can be used to help map scaled scores to fine level scores, and the way it works is like this. So currently, if I just turn off the suggested fine level score mapping, what this grey line shows is the distribution of scaled scores on a cumulative percentage graph. So you can see for the current year 10, those who sat their scaled score tests in 2016, those that scored 100, for example, we're looking at around 34% of students did that, and those who got 107, got 69% of students got 107 or below, and then obviously at the top we've got 100% of students got 120 or below. Now if you then turn the mapping on, you'll see as it currently stands it sits pretty much on top of that line, and what that means is if we use this mapping scheme, then anybody who sort of gets a 90 becomes a 3.18, anyone who gets 96 becomes a 3.553, etc. Now the way those mappings have been calculated are to put two markers in where you want the mid, where the lower band of students, lower prior attainment, in other words what used to be 3 to 4, and then you've got the middle band of students, those that were 4 to 5, and those that would have been the top band 5 to 6. And at the moment those bands are from 80 to 99, 100 to 105, and 106 to 120. Now one thing to notice about scaled scores is that the number of students nationally that get this middle band, as is at the moment, is very high. So there's a big bump in the middle, and therefore if we use this method of splitting it into thirds, 34% of the students in the lower band, 31% in the middle band, and 34% in the top band, if we split them into thirds, then you end up with a very narrow band of scaled scores in the middle, because that's where the largest group of students, well, there's a big group of students got around just that 100 to 105 score. And this is what FFT use. They just split down the middle into thirds, split the students into thirds so that they get these three groups like that. And when you split the three groups like that, these are the bands, 99 and 100 and 105 and 106. However, if you look at the 2015 results at Key Stage 2, you'll see that 87% got a 4 or more, and that means that 13% are in the lower band. And you also see that 42% got 5 or more. So if we're looking for the top band to be 42% and the bottom band to be 13%, that isn't what we get if we split them into thirds, obviously. So I need to move this boundary down a bit, and if I move it to 93, I get the bottom band being around the 13%, which maps what happened in 2015. If I move this up to around, down to around 103, we get to 44% in the top group. Let's look back at the data, and it says 42% should be getting 5 or more. Let's just move it down one more, or 104. We get between 39 and 44. So it's a boundary is in around there. And if we use these as our boundaries, 93 and 103, 104, then we then fit the students in around those boundaries. We get a great sort of a path that looks a bit like this, and a mapping down below of exactly what our scale scores would be at fine level scores. You can export this scheme, click on export, and it goes into a spreadsheet, and here we've got the scaled score column, and you've got your suggested fine level score mapping. Now that leaves us with so where do we put our boundaries? If you want to use the FFT model, then you need to put it at 100 and 105, and that splits them as best we can into thirds. If you want to use a mapping that looks a little bit more like what happened in 2015, then to go down to 93 and 103 or 104 gives you a better model compared to nationally in 2015. That's where we're at. So it's hard to know exactly where it's going to be. We're not comparing like with like, and I think that's the problem. With scaled scores, you've got a very large middle band. In other words, that a large group of students scored between 100 and 105, and that means that you've got a normal distribution with a big bump in the middle. And with final scores, it was a little bit flatter. But we need to make a comparison, and so this is a modelling tool that will enable you to generate a scheme that suits your school best. In Compass, you can do it on the fly, so you can change this slider position and update your Progress 8 scores accordingly, so that it is you can model all sorts of situations. But it's up to the school how they want to do that. As I say, if you follow the FFT model, they've put it at 100 and 105, roughly around there. If you want to use a model from previous years, mapping against the percentages of students in the lower, middle and high band, then it will probably be around 93, 94 and 103 or 104.